love is what I need.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Morning Devo with Bo O. It is May 31st and we are in Esther chapter 4 today, and kind of getting through the book of Esther, getting through really this section of the time of Ezra, Nehemiah, and Esther. And then we might move around a little bit, and we'll see some different situations maybe going on in the life of Israel. And so, but we're kind of going through the Bible, seeing the flow of it, seeing how God relates to mankind, that God is, in a sense, hidden himself from mankind, veiled himself from mankind ever since the garden, due to the fact that God's character, his essence, is holy. And this is what distinguishes God from us, is that God is holy and that he cannot compromise this essence of who he is, his being. And there's ramifications, though, with being in a relationship with God when God's holy. And so we see this whole theme kind of play out throughout the Bible. You can always check out the archives at my YouTube channel at Bo Willette. Just give it a whirl and go into YouTube and Bo Willette, and you can see all the different books of the Bible that we've gone through already. And check them out, enjoy them. It's always fun just to go through the Bible, and you'll find just how relevant it is. Like we just got done talking about hegemonical powers. You know, it's funny. People always vote today, and they think that they're voting in a good candidate, right? And lo and behold, like this last election we had, it's funny, like, you know, people voted in a very strong hegemonical power structure, meaning a very strong group of people that have been in government for a long period of time, and people continue to vote in these kind of people that just have been living in the government forever, getting a paycheck from the government for a long period of time. So they really are part of that government structure that's been around for 50 years. And even though people think they're progressive, they're not really progressive at all in who they're voting for, right? It's not progressive to vote in someone who's been in office, in the government for 40, 50 years. That's not very progressive. But, because you're just voting in just people that know the system. They know the system well. Well, Esther is in a empire called the Medes and the Persian Empire that has a system, and people have been in that system for a long period of time, and there's a lot of animosity, and even within the government structure there's people that hate one another. Esther is now considered the queen, but yet her cousin, a guy named Mordecai, is also Jewish like Esther and is hated by this guy Haman, who's in government, who is an Agagite. And their background is one of a lot of warring, those different groups of people. And so Haman is ready to kill all the Jews on a particular day in March. And it's something that he proposed to the king in a very lobbyist kind of way, and this is where the Bible gets so relevant and so neat, in that it's so much like today, where there's all this jockeying for position, there's all this pulling of strings, there's all this kind of talk in the back, there's all this flow of financial funds that goes everywhere. And this was going on in this day as well, and there's favors being done and people wanting things taken care of, and people have old hatreds that they want taken care of as well. People think they're doing the right thing, but really they're not doing the right thing. Here, people probably are concerned, maybe some people are concerned that there's this genocidal government thing that's going on against the Jews, but people want to obey the government. They don't want to go against the government, and so there's this incredible pressure on the common person in the Medial Persian Empire that of what to do. Do we just go along with the government and go along with the killing of all the Jewish people in our areas and in the regions around us? And this has happened in the last century, right, with Hitler. But it's gone on with the Jewish people over and over and over again, this incredible hatred against Israel that continues on to our day, where people even today still hate the Jewish people. And man, it is incredible. It's something that is definitely... we have to account for it. And so Esther chapter 4 says, "Masters, be just and fair to your slaves." Oh, wait, sorry, that's Colossians. I was looking at the book of Colossians earlier today, and there I opened up to it. So it says, "When Mordecai learned about all that had been done, he tore his clothes and put on burlap and ashes and went into the city crying out loud with a bitter wail." Wow. By the way, I don't want to go any further without saying hi to my friends Marcia, Paula, and Laura. Man, the three musketeers are in the house with me today. Love it. And but here Mordecai really is bummed out. He learns about what had been done, this massacre that's going to take place on March 7th, 1 year. And they have 1 year before this law goes into effect. And it is against the Jewish people. And, because the Jewish people don't want to... they want to keep their own language. They want to keep their own walk with God, with Yahweh, blah, blah, blah. They don't want to conform to the ways of the Medial Persian Empire. And so they're bad, rough, right? Yeah, really rough. Sometimes, by the way, we can get rough with people because they don't conform to the nationality of what we think is the nationality of our country. Like, for instance, we might say, well, I don't like those people because they aren't American. And we have to be careful when we say things like that, right? Like, what does that mean? Like, does it mean that they don't want to submit to the laws of the country? Well, probably not. They probably are living here and they do want to submit to the laws of the country, but maybe they're different. Maybe they do keep their national language where they're from. Maybe they live in a neighborhood that pretty much is a bunch of people from where they came from. Germany. And this is how it was in our lives. If we go back far enough in our descendants, we're going to see our French people, our German people. If you're European, if you're from Africa, you're going to see that too. You're going to see it from South America, where a lot of our people our people, meaning from where the motherland, so to speak, they came together and they stuck together, and they spoke their language and things like that. And so we got to be careful we don't have this kind of Haman attitude where we're like, oh, these Jewish people, they won't budge an inch. They're going to stick to their national, language. They're going to stick to the way they worship their God, and therefore they're not American. We just got to be careful of these kind of stereotypes and these kind of accusations. We definitely could be like Haman. God, not a good guy to be like. So Mordecai, he's crying. He weeps loud. Nothing's wrong with weeping real loud, right? Sometimes there's times to weep real loud, right? No doubt about it. And it says, he went as far as the gate of the palace, for no one was allowed to enter the palace gate while wearing clothes of mourning. Hey, you could only go into the palace, man, if you were stoked. You had to be the happy guy, So maybe people like me who have a happy temperament, maybe we can just hang out there. But if you have a melancholy temperament, you weren't allowed in there. Whoa, what a bummer, huh? What a trip. That's interesting, huh? And so, and then it says, and as the news of the king's decree reached all the provinces, there was great mourning among the Jews. They fasted, wept, wailed, and many lay in burlap and ashes. Am I afraid to cry? Am I afraid to show mourning? Man, that's really a good question. Really good. Because sometimes, you can maybe be afraid to cry and afraid of the vulnerability that, you feel when you do, cry, I guess, and that happens, I think, to a lot of people, but I think it's good to, I know it's always been, I've always felt pretty good about crying in front of people, when it's necessary, and I've been on stage before and giving messages and cried. I've, things like that. And it can be awkward, but I think that vulnerability can be powerful too. And it says, when Queen Esther's maids and eunuchs came and told her about Mordecai, she was deeply distressed. I bet. Her cousin, absolutely saddened by this. She sent clothing to him to replace the burlap, but he refused it. Then Esther sent for Hathach, one of the king's eunuchs, who has been appointed to her attendant, as her attendant, and she ordered him to go to Mordecai and find out what was troubling him and why he was mourning. So Hathach went to the Mordecai in the square in front of the palace gate. Mordecai told the whole story, including the exact amount of money Haman had promised to pay into the royal treasury for the destruction of the Jews. See, there's that money trail. Woohoo, there it is again. The old money trail. You can see, hey, why did this thing pass? What's the money? What's the kickback? What's the governor getting? What's the mayor getting? What's this person getting? What's that person getting? Where's the money flowing? This kind of thing. It's a good question. Even in our life, it's good to ask those things. And it says that Mordecai gave Hathach a copy of the decree issued in Susa that called for the death of the Jews. He asked that he show it to Esther, or she show it to Esther. I think it's a she, it's a he, and the eunuch's obviously a he, to show it to Esther and explained the situation to her. Then he asked Hathach to direct her to the king to beg for mercy and plead for her people. So Hathach returned to Esther with Mordecai's message. So Esther told Hathach to go back and relay the message to Mordecai. All the king's officials and even the people of the provinces know that anyone who appears before the king in his inner court without being invited is doomed to die unless the king holds out his gold scepter. And the king has not called for me to come to him for 30 days. So Hathach gave Esther's message to Mordecai. Mordecai sent this reply to Esther. So it sounds like, Mordecai, Esther's cousin, sends Esther a message saying, hey, this is the situation. It's pretty dire. I mean, we are going to all be massacred in a year. And this has been something that Haman has done. He has a vendetta against us, a revenge on his mind, and he has paid off the government with money and lobbied for this bill to get passed. And lo and behold, it gets passed, and money is being made. And, he's, of course, bummed out by this. And Esther says, man, I can't go in to see the king. The king hasn't called for me. You can't just barge in on the king. And, I would imagine Xerxes was a pretty gnarly warrior dude. And, you don't know if that dude's just been to war or what, but he hasn't been with Esther for 30 days. So he's been a little bit busy, obviously doing some things. And so she doesn't want to bum him out, get him mad, right? So Mordecai sends this reply, don't think for a moment that because you're in the palace, you will escape when all the Jews are killed. If you keep quiet at this time, this deliverance and relief for the Jews will raise some other place, but you and your relatives will die. Who knows if perhaps you were made queen for just as time as this. Then Esther sent this reply to Mordecai, go and gather together all the Jews of Susa and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days or 3 nights. My maids and I will do the same. And then, though it is against the law, I will go to see the king. If I must die, I must die. So Mordecai went away and did everything that Esther had ordered him. Now, a lot of people look to, of course, the courage of Esther in the story, in this narrative. But, you got to remember that as a little group of people have gone already to Jerusalem to rebuild the temple and get that temple going, a very small amount, this kind of chaos is going on in the capital of the Persian Empire. And Mordecai really is the hero. I mean, what a hero, right? Mordecai says to Esther, and he has to talk some sense into her, right? She's like fearing, I ain't going in to see the king. There's no way. I mean, what if he just decides to take me out? I mean, you can't just go barge in at the king. But she gets this letter from Mordecai. Now, this is, man, really powerful to me because, do I have that kind of boldness to be able to urge people in that kind of fashion to say, hey, man, this is the right thing to do? Like, if you don't do this, there's going to be some serious ramifications. And don't think you're going to escape that. I mean, do you see his boldness to write that letter and to be like, Esther, you ain't getting out of this. Don't think that you can just kind of, oh boy, I think I'll just hide in the, in the bedchamber of the king and everything's going to be fine. He makes it clear that no, this will come back and this will hurt you and this is going to hurt your family. You have to move. And then he says that famous line, who knows, perhaps you were what? You were made queen. You were raised up for such a time as now, right? And maybe this is what God's doing. He's got you in this position. And I love that. God's got you in this position. God's got me in this position. God's got people in the government in that position. Do it. Go for it. Be used by God. Have courage. Oh man, what a great message, especially for those that are in that leadership position in the government. God, have courage. Move forward. Speak up where you need to speak up. Share what you need to share. And who knows what's going to happen, but perhaps God has got you in that spot for such a time to be that intercessor, for the people who don't have a voice, right? How many people in the Persian Empire that were Jews that didn't have a voice at all. 1 million? 2 million? And they didn't have a voice. That lowly person doesn't have a voice. But someone is in a place of power that can do something and make decisions for them and to help them. And, that's a noble cause, man. That's pretty Esther-like, don't you think? So when maybe a government person is kind of sticking up, and saying, hey, this is the right thing to do, then, maybe we got to look at it more like an Esther call. Like, hey, that person's called like Esther. They're in a position of power and they can really make a difference. Notice, too, that they prayed. Gosh, I love that. Seeking prayer for things that go on in the government. I love that, too. The idea of just committing myself to some prayer and fasting. Fast a meal. Use that time to just pray. Think about what's going on in our world. Pray for the different government officials. Pray for their families. Pray that they know the Lord. Pray that they come to read the Bible and come to be affected by the work of the Holy Spirit in their life. Things like that. I think that's really cool too. Both, Mordecai and Esther are on board with this idea of just this fasting and prayer. And we'll see that, Jesus said, hey, you seek the Lord. You have faith of a mustard seed and you can move mountains, man. Mountains in the Bible it is at times used as a reference to governments, to empires, mountains, stability, huge kind of thing. And here you see faith of a mustard seed. Let's fast, let's pray. Maybe, just maybe, the mountain's going to get moved. Maybe the government will change. Maybe their eyes will be opened. Interesting. So maybe I just need to commit myself to, 1 Timothy chapter, 2. It talks about, praying for all people in authority. And, that's it. Kings, officials, mayors, you might write them and you might write them a mean letter, but maybe we need to pray and fast and then write them. Maybe not write so mean. Maybe throw out our hearts, but let's be nice about it, and so that kind of thing. So I love the way that they go about change in their government. In desperate times, they seek the Lord and they really fast. If my people who are called by my name, right, will humble themselves and begin to pray, then I will hear from heaven above and heal their land, right? God's promise to the Jewish people. If you guys turn to me, man, you will be healed. Turn to me. Boy, that is so needed, right, in our life. And I know me, I'm a part of the problem. It's not like I got it all licked. I need to turn to the Lord. So when I tell people, hey, we need to turn to the Lord, I mean me too, So, man, what a cool way, though, to change the world, huh, through prayer. Very cool. Yes, Marcia, the book of Esther is a very real page turner. It has it all. So true. Good and evil. And interesting, right? It doesn't mention God once in the book. What a trip, huh? That's going to be interesting. So, an interesting book in what is omitted from the book of Esther. Not so much omitted, but just what's absent, I should say it that way. But it doesn't mean that the God of Israel isn't permeating the thought life of Esther and Mordecai and the other Jewish people. We see that they have been dedicated to Yahweh, trying to get back to Yahweh. And that's what's created such a problem with Haman, being so mad, is that these Jewish people are stubborn. They just want to stick to their roots. So, hey, cool stuff. Let's be praying. Let's be fasting. Let's be seeking the Lord. And we'll see God do a great move. So you guys take care, okay? Have a great day. Bye-bye.